got to mention, it can be difficult to teach in this circumstance because there can be so many different levels of players, right? I mean, I'm just looking out, I know some of you have been playing for many years and play at a high level, so it can be difficult when you have maybe somebody that's just starting out, that's learning the instrument. No, you're not one of them. So I'll try and do an overview the best I can. Maybe start right from the beginning and teach some of the basics, and then get into maybe a little more advanced or intermediate to advanced material towards the end of the clinic. And I welcome questions. If anybody has any questions at any point, feel free to ask questions, and we'll try and address them. If I don't know the answer, there's guys out here that that know the answer because they've been playing a long time too. So, so that first song, in case you didn't recognize it, was a song called Sleepwalk. And it's an old song that was, actually it wasn't played on a pedal steel, it was played on a lap steel. And I didn't actually research this, if it was a 6-string or 8-string. I believe it was probably a 6-string Fender lap steel. And that was a big hit back. Does anybody remember the year that song was recorded? In
the 50s.
Yes, Mal, you win. It was 1959. Yeah. So many years ago. And so a lot of changes since then. The pedal steel was actually invented before 1959. So even though that was a popular song back in the day, the pedal steel came about, they don't know the exact year, but maybe in the late 40s when the pedal steel first came into existence. And but they didn't play it the way it's being played now. Back then, they had a pedal that would basically change the whole tuning. So it would be, let's say back then, a 6-string pedal steel. It would take it from one chord, and then you would press the pedal, and it would take it right to another chord. So it would change the whole structure of the tuning. It wasn't just changing certain chords, or basically used as a lick, to incorporate licks and fills. So, so that's it evolved into this. But before that, it was there was a song that was recorded in 1954, before 1959, and it was a tune by Webb Pierce called "Slowly," and it was the first pedal steel that really made its way onto a record that went huge. Like, it was on the charts for weeks. I can't remember how long, and the steel player was Bud Isaacs, and I'll just play basically what he did for the intro and the ending. I don't know what he did for the fills, but it was like this. It was something like that, and that was the first time that you actually heard the movement of the pedals. Before that, like I say, it was just you would be playing in the tuning, the pedals. It would change the tuning, so you actually wouldn't hear the notes move within the tuning. So that was the first time that you could actually hear the pedals being released and being pulled and the strings being moved. And then the instrument took off like crazy. That was mid-50s. But again, a lot of changes since then. That would have been probably, again, a 6-string pedal steel. And the other thing is what we have now are what's called split pedals. So back then, Bud Isaacs, he would have had what I'm doing with 2 pedals. He would have had those changes on one pedal. So moving, for instance, strings 5 and 6, I'm pressing 2 pedals. He would have had that change on one pedal. So he's just playing one pedal to get that. So then there were many changes after that into the 50s, but it was Buddy Emmons who had the genius to say, well, I'm going to split up that pedal into 2 separate pedals. So now this basically now, as we know it, is the more modern pedal steel with 10 strings, and it's basically an E9th tuning. So what Buddy did is you had the option to do this now. So you could play one pedal, and now all of a sudden you're getting a minor chord, or you're getting a suspended by just playing the one pedal. So before that, with the Bud Isaacs setup, you didn't have that option to. You could just go from one chord to the next, even though you could hear the strings being moved. So yeah, so that was Emmons that did that. He basically defined what we do today. I mean, he ended up adding the top two strings, the E flat and the F sharp, because those weren't on before. And I believe it was Ralph Mooney that added the high G sharp, because he was the one that did all that early Waylon Jennings stuff. Before that, he recorded with Merle Haggard, he recorded with Buck Owens, Wynn Stewart. He was doing all that stuff out in California, all that West Coast type stuff. And so that basically completed the tuning with the addition of the 9th string on the lower register. And so now that's basically, this is a Nashville setup, a basic Nashville setup, E9th tuning. And now it's not like a guitar. Those of you maybe just starting out, you don't typically strum it, right? It's not a rhythmic instrument in that regard that you can strum it. You're more or less picking groups of notes and chords to get chords to create the music. So I'm just going to go through and basically explain. Oh yeah, just go back to the top two strings. So this is an E9th tuning, and how that happened is, and years ago they called it E9th chromatic, and that really wasn't accurate, because it's an E9th, because I'll go through the strings. So it's starting from the high string, the third string is a G sharp, then the fourth string is an E, then the fifth string is a B. So that creates an E major triad. That's an E chord, right, if you will. Now go to the 6th string. That's just an octave of the third string, the G sharp. So that's another third of the chord. So, and then if you skip a string, go into the 8th string, that's another E string. And then the 10th string, skip the 9th string, the 10th string is a B note as well. So it's an octave of the 5th, and the 8th is an octave of the 4th. So you're basically, those are the triads for the E major part of the tuning. Now, where the 9th, E9th came in is it has an F sharp on top. So that's the 9th part of the tuning. So, and that's an add 9. I'm sorry, I want to make that clear. That's an add 9 part of the chord. Now the 7th string is an octave. It's an F sharp as well. So it's an octave lower. And then the 9th string is a D note. So this is where the 9th came in. So to create that 9th chord, to create a 7th chord, to back up a little bit, you need a flat 7 note in the scale. I don't want to get into a lot of theory, but I want to try and explain how this developed, this tuning. So you got the E major with the D note, so that's an E7th chord, right? If I was going to play just E7th, I would play strings 4, 6, and 9. And then the bass player would play the E note to give that full chord. So that's an E7th. Now, when you stack notes, that's how it makes a new chord. So when you add the F sharp note, and it doesn't matter which one. You can add the first string or the seventh string. That would actually be considered an E9th. That's an E9th chord right there. And you can play the first string as well. So that's where the E9th comes from. Now the second string is kind of the oddball. It's a D sharp note or an E flat, and I guess maybe that's where the chromatic came into be when they talked about it. Because I mean, to define chromatic, I mean if you go up all the way up the scale, every note, that's your chromatic scale. So it includes every note in a scale. In the chromatic scale. So now, going back to the E chord, so we got E. If you were to add that second string, which is a D sharp or an E flat, you get a major seventh. It creates a major seventh chord. So that's, like I say, that's kind of the oddballish note that's not really part of the tuning, but the rest of it defines an E9th. So that's the open tuning. And I'm just gonna just give you an example. Before they were just playing chords, much like I just right. So that's just on the major grips playing a major chord. When Emmons added the top two strings, it allowed you to play. All of a sudden, you could play melodies. Now you could play stuff like right. You could reach up, hit that first string, and get a little melody lift like. Right? Before you would have had to slide your bar up, let's say, and press a pedal to get that same type of sound, which is fine. It's another way of doing it. But it freed you up to be able to play at one fret and get these melodies and go backwards even. Right? That type of simple thing, which is pretty. But then with second string, and then with the pedals, and I'll get into what the pedals do. Right, it would give you that. So I'm just going off 4 and 2. Right, to give you a little melody there. And then, you can use them in conjunction with each other too. Right, that's just off of strings 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. A great player from years ago, Hal Rugg, had a great lick, that type of thing, and that's just bouncing off of strings 2 and 3. So, right, he got in, and you can get some neat melodic moves off of strings 1 and 2. Okay, so that's basically the open tuning. Now with the pedals. There's so many different setups, so I'm just mine is pretty much a standard Emmons setup with the pedals, and my knee levers are pretty much standard Emmons, and I've got a few Franklin changes thrown in as well, Paul Franklin. And again, years ago, so there was a little debate, not a debate that went on, but when Emmons split the pedals, at the same time, there was a guy named Jimmy Day that also split the pedals. But he split them differently. So now we have today what's known as the Emmons setup and then the Day setup. And so everybody's in a different camp. And I don't think there's any right or wrong way. I'll be honest, I've been playing the Emmons setup for over 40 years now. And if I was starting over, I would probably consider the Jimmy Day setup. Only because it kind of makes sense, just the way that your ankle is designed to move and roll, it would actually, I think, be easier to do the Jimmy Day setup. But I've been playing so long that it would be too hard for me to switch at this point. So the Emmons pedal setup has the first pedal, or the A pedal, that raises strings 5 and 10, a whole tone up from B to C sharp. And then the second pedal, or the B pedal, raises strings 3 and 6 from G sharp to A. And then the C pedal, or the third pedal, takes strings 3 and 5, the E string and the B string, and it raises them a whole tone. So E to F sharp, and then B to C sharp. And then what I've done is the last few years, Paul Franklin, in his wisdom, decided to put the 8th string, take the 8th string and raise it a whole tone as well on the C pedal. So I do the same thing. I raise that lower 8th string from E to F sharp. And I really like that. I've been using that for many years. I'll probably demonstrate a few things later today, what you can use that for. But that's not really a standard change, but it's becoming more standard. What it does is it allows you to grab, I mean, if you're going to play a minor chord with the 2nd and the 3rd pedal being C pedals, right? It gives you a minor. It gives you a 2 minor from the position you're in, the open position. I'm in A, so that would give me a B minor. On strings 3, 4, and 5, and 4, 5, and 6. And then after that, you're out of luck if you don't have that. If you've got that lower raise on the 8th string, you can get that nice lower minor in the lower register instead of reattack. Otherwise, you got to reattack strings. You have to press the A and B pedals or B and C, and then hit your 7th string. But then you can't really move it because the pedals aren't hooked up to it. So it gives you a nice option to be able to play that minor in the lower register, and then you can come off the pedals, and then slide the bar and sustain, which is nice. So that's the C pedal, or the 3rd pedal. And then I've got, this is fairly common now for the last many years, but I wouldn't call it standard, but I've got a 4th pedal that is also known as the Franklin pedal now. And what it's doing is it's lowering strings 4, 6, and 10 a whole tone. So it's moving 3 strings a whole tone, which is fairly considerable. And what's neat about that is when you use it in conjunction with the major grips, using strings 4 and 8 as well, it creates a really nice melody lift as well for that. So you can come off the pedals. This, again, key of A, if you're at the 5th fret, no pedals. You can, you don't even need to hit pedals. You can just hit that chord, hit that pedal, and it drops those 2 strings down and still keeps the root note on top. You can release it, go back to your A and B. It just makes for some really nice melody things. You can do it on the lower grips. I'm just playing string. Sorry, I didn't get into the major grips yet, which I will talk about that now. So there are major grips that we can use that will give us mostly the major chords. So those grips would be strings 3, 4, and 5, strings 4, 5, and 6, strings 5, 6, and 8, and then strings 6, 8, and 10. Now those are the 4 major grips, but I would also include these as well because they still keep in the major chord. So you can also include strings 3, 5, and 8, and strings 4, 6, and 10. Because those you're still getting the triad over the major chord. Now, you can even add another one in there, which is a wide grip, but it's 3, 8, and 10, which is kind of sometimes a hard grip to nail. Lloyd Green did a great instrumental. Utilizing that grip for a good chunk of the song. It's Bars of Steel, it's called, and it's a challenge, but if you want to learn that grip, maybe learn that instrumental because he uses that wide grip through a lot of that tune. Yeah, but I like those lower voicings. They sound, there's a nice richness there with the lower string with the higher 4th string as well. So that's the Franklin pedal. And for my knee levers, I'm raising this left knee left, going this way outside. It's typical, I'm raising strings 4 and 8, a half a tone from E to F. So that's a standard change that was put on by Lloyd Green many years ago in the 60s. Just to talk a little bit about that, Lloyd has a very simple setup in that he uses still the same old Showbuds guitar that he didn't design, but he actually had the C6th neck removed because it was he was doing so much studio work and he didn't want to carry around all that weight. So he had the C6th removed because they weren't using it in the studio back then, much like today. So he put a pad. He had the ingenious idea to put a pad on the back where the C6th was. And getting back to so he's just got 3 pedals and 4 knees. I don't even think he has a vertical lever, if I'm mistaken. He doesn't use a vertical. So, but at that point, back in the mid-60s, this change was not even around. That E to F change, that hadn't even been thought of yet. So Lloyd had the ingenuity to figure out that he knew something was missing on the guitar because he couldn't play everything that he wanted to play. He would get stuck at certain frets. So he'd have to change string groupings and figure out a different way to do it. So he figured it out. I think it was, the story I remember is Pete Drake had a pedal that he put on but it didn't do what this was doing. It would if you stayed at 1 fret, it would give you that same change. But it was pulling like 2 or 3 strings and it was hard to push. It would have been moving this string, the 5th string, up a tone and a half is what it would have done, because we normally raise it a tone. So it would have brought it up another tone, which is quite a pull. So anyway, Lloyd figured out that all I got to do is add this knee lever to raise the 4th and 8th string, and press the 1st pedal, the A pedal, and move up a fret. And I can get that same chord. I can get those changes that Pete Drake was getting at the 1 fret. And it's kind of cool because it gives you the move too, right? It's not just a pedal because you're moving the bar. It gives you right, there's a certain emotion there when you move the bar and move pedals and knee levers to get to the chord. It's not just like staying at 1 fret. So that, Lloyd brought that into being. And then I have this is an Emmons knee lever setup as well. Buddy Emmons had both his knees on the 1 knee and the left knee. So now this knee lever, my left knee moving right, lowers 4 and 8 a half a tone. So that it moves the roots down. So, and that's the Emmons, basically pedal and knee lever setup. Now from there, what I do is on my right knee left, I'm raising the 1st string a whole tone. Now years ago, they used to just raise it a half a tone. But the beauty of this is you still can. So you can get what's called a half stop on knee levers. And I'll explain once we get into this one. But I don't have a half stop on this. I've just gotten used to raising it a half a tone, or close to it. And close enough for country, yeah. But it gives you both options. Now I can do, I want to finish explaining what it's doing. It's raising the 2nd string a half a tone, as well as that 1st string a whole tone. So it gives you, if it's in tune, gives you a unison note to the 4th string. And then I'm also raising the 7th string a whole tone. And that gives you a unison like the 6th string open. So same as the 1st. So that's pretty much, there have been different people that have brought that in and out. Paul Franklin really popularized it in the 90s through the session work he did. And so he still uses that type of setup. So what that allows you to do is to get some really cool unison things. And I'll explain that lever after, but you can, it gives you a unison capability by raising those first and seventh strings a whole tone and raising your second string a half. But then you can still, if you need to, you can still pull that string a half a tone, right? So I'm just using half an E lever. If I was going to pull it the whole way, you can get the minor halfway through, right? So you just got to get used to it. You got to listen for it. It's kind of like the same thing as a lot of people half pedal the A pedal, right? When you go for an augmented chord, you're just hitting that A pedal halfway. So it's a matter of listening for it and getting used to the feel of it, and yeah. And so that's this knee. Now the right knee right is it's a standard change as well now. So I'm lowering the second string a half a tone, and now this one I do have a stop. There's a feel stop there. So it's actually tunable. So I can go in here and tune it. And I can adjust the feel. I can get it more tension if I want to feel the stop more or less. So, because there's going to be certain things where you'll want to go a smooth transition from the open note to the full lower. I was just going to say it also lowers a whole tone. So it lowers a half, and then if you push it again, it lowers it a whole tone the extra way. So it's a unison note with your A pedal down on your fifth string. Right? So that's the same note. So yeah, so you can, if you go halfway, what it does is it creates a seventh chord. So again, if you're utilizing the major grips, right, that's going to give you a E7th open, because it was a major seventh. So now if you lower it the whole way, you get a sixth. Not often used, but you can use that upper extension if need be for a sixth chord, and we'll probably get into more of that this afternoon. Now that I also lower the ninth string a half a tone, which is a standard change again on that knee. And it becomes the same. It goes from D to C sharp. So if you were to raise that A pedal, use the A pedal and raise that 10th string a whole tone, you get a unison note there as well. So that's the same note, that C sharp note. And again, I'll get into this a little bit later in the lesson, but there's some really nice sixth type chords, C6th type sounds that we can get on this tuning, utilizing that ninth string with that lever. So that's basically my setup, and that's as far as a single neck E9th. A lot of people use a vertical lever on the left knee, and I used to have one here. I took it off. It came on this guitar. I've got lower back issues, so I have a hard time lifting up my left leg to utilize the vertical knee. So I don't use a vertical knee lever. They're great. If you want to use one, they're wonderful. It gives you another option. And generally what that one would do, and I don't have it hooked up, but it would lower 5 and 10 a half a tone. So it will lower your fifths of the chord a half a tone. So there, but an octave lower. But there are other ways to kind of get around that. You can't get all of the big chord extensions, but I've gotten so used to doing stuff like, right? And if you're going to do that move with the lever, you would be one fret higher and utilize that lever to give you that change. And I just got used to backing up one fret and raising the E's to F to get at least that And I mean, there are other things you can do too to get chord extensions or different grips. But anyway, that vertical lever will give you that change or whatever change you want. And I just want to make that point is that there's no standardized setup, but there's no wrong setup either. It's basically whatever you want to do musically with this thing. Every setup is a compromise. I don't care if you've got, 5, 6 pedals and 8 knee levers on a single neck guitar. There's always a compromise depending on the setup. So, and you can go different directions. Like Lloyd Green, like I mentioned, he took, he's taken a basic setup, 3 pedals and 4 knees, and makes the most complex music you could ever hear with a basic setup. So it's all about the player. It's not in the setup. And he never experimented. He took that setup and stuck with it all these years and made, and still makes great music with a simple setup. But then you've got players like Buddy Emmons and others that have experimented over the years trying different setups. Maybe basically staying with the same basic setup, but maybe certain knee levers they would experiment and try different changes. And that's great too. There's nothing wrong with that. It's going to lead you in the direction of music that you want to go, or it'll be the other way. It'll be whatever direction of music you want to figure out and play. You're going to find that setup. You're going to experiment and say, okay, well, I need this pedal for this to do this song or this tune or whatever. So you're just going to. Your setup may evolve over time, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And then you may come to a point, like me, I've had the same setup since the mid-90s, pretty much, and haven't really deviated from it. You just kind of make music from there. Now, I do want to mention, I just recently got into tunable splits. I never ever used splits in my life until I started playing Mullen guitar. And I want to mention too, there's also a double neck, which is a standard now, which is 2 tunings. So you can have another neck with 10 strings and behind here, and it's basically usually a C6th tuning open. And it'll have anywhere from 4 to 5 pedals and up to 4 or 5 knee levers too, if you want. And so back to the split tuners. I added the split tuning when I first got the double neck. That's where I was going with this. Is I've got split tuning on my 4th and 8th strings on the E9th. So what that allows you to do is with the C pedal, raising that 4th string a whole tone. And so now, if you lower it with the C pedal engaged, you're going to get a note in between. You're going to get a semitone in between, is what it is. Now, you can do that without the split tuning, but it doesn't always allow you to tune it. Well, it doesn't allow you to tune it, so it's going to be close, but it's not going to be right in tune. What the split tuners does is it allows you to tune those chromatic notes in between. So now I can go... I can get a full chromatic raise and lower on that 4th string without reattacking the note or changing string groups. And I can tune them. They're right in tune. So I'm just going off of, that would be out of either the minor position. And you can go off strings like 3 and 4. And I'm just pressing pedals 2 and 3 or B and C. So I'm raising the 3rd string and the 4th string. And then lower the 4th string, so it's... And then what you do is you release both of them. You release the raise on the 4th pedal and release the lower on the knee lever. And then you're free to lower that 4th string a half a tone with just the lever. And that gives you, like I say, that gives you a nice movement down to the... Now, the easiest way to think of that is if let's say I was playing What it's doing is it's giving you, I mean, that would normally be used out of going from a B minor chord into an E or an E7th, right? Because there's an E7th. So if you can hear B minor, there's B minor. Right to a nice E7th. So that's the typical change that would be used on. But you can use it right through, like you can move it right through a 5 chord, like an E7th. It wouldn't even have to be the B minor. Like if you wanted to do like a lick like that, that's moving chromatically just through E7th. It doesn't have to go through a B minor. So it's, I don't want to teach that yet. That's getting a little ahead of myself. But does anybody have any questions yet?
I don't have a question, but I'm sure impressed with that tone you're getting.
Is it okay?
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Fender Twin?
Yes, that's the new Tonemaster.
Oh, okay.
So it's the one that's very light. And there's no tubes in it. It's just solid state. And it's 200 watts, I believe. Two 12-inch speakers that are really light. And
wow.
Yeah, I've had it about a year, and I've been using it pretty much on every live gig. I've got an old Fender, an old 68 tube twin at home that I use for recording because it just sounds a little sweeter and a little warmer. But yeah, for live stuff, it works really well. It's nice and loud and clean, and so I'm quite happy with it.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and I think they sell them right here at Long McQuade if anybody wants to put it in order.
I got a tuning question, Dave.
Yes.
Your outside neighbor, your E9th, what do you tune that to? I know that I know. Sorry.
No, that's a great question, and I was actually gonna get into tuning a little bit today, but no, we can
relay that if you want.
No, we can address that because I think we're pretty close to that anyway.
I know it's
yeah.
rabbit hole.
Don posed a great question as far as tuning this thing. I've been playing 40 years and I'm still trying to figure out how to tune it, but I've done a lot of research on this, and I've actually changed my method of tuning the last few years, I'll be honest. There's an old school method, and a lot of great players still use it. And I'm not going to knock one method over another method because it's really an individual thing. It really, because I've seen pro players tune a guitar, and then somebody else, another great player, sit down, and the first thing they do is they start tweaking it. Because they have to tune it for themselves, right? Because, you look at this thing. This is the tuning device right here, right? You can tune the open strings wherever you want, right? You can tune them all to 440, like a guitar or a bass guitar. You can tune them sweet by ear in certain combinations. You can tune them anywhere in between. But the bottom line is when this thing hits the strings, doesn't matter where your open tuning is too much. As long as it's in the ballpark. But and the other thing is pressure, right? You're going to have different players using a different amount of pressure on the strings, and that is crucial because the best advice I could give, just to me, is don't use excessive pressure. Just use enough pressure to get rid of, you can probably hear this. Hear that string that kind of sounds buzzy, right? It's got a buzz to it. Right? So that tells me I'm not putting enough pressure on the bar. You want that string to just... Right? You don't want to hear any buzz on the string. And that's gonna change depending on what strings you play. If you get into the lower strings, you may have to add a little bit more pressure. They might, to get rid of that buzzy note. And the other thing that happens is if you're doing a wide grip, like I mentioned, you got to try and keep the pressure uniform, because if you have too much pressure on the back of the bar, you're going to pull those lower strings out of tune. You're going to make them go sharp. You can hear those notes go out when I do that. And the same with the top. If you've got too much pressure on the top strings, you're going to be pulling those strings out of tune in relationship to the other notes. So it's a juggling act at best, but if you practice and you'll find what works for you. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. I never ever try to tell somebody, oh, you got to do it like this, because what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for the other person. So, but again, I think that's a good rule of thumb, is just enough pressure to get rid of that buzz. And that's going to keep your tuning fairly good and consistent as you move up the fretboard. Something else that happens is you can tune this thing open, and you get way up here in what they call John Huey land, where the frets get skinnier.
John Huey.
Huey land. And you really got to watch your tuning, right? The other thing too is your bar's got to be straight to the fret marker, right? If you got your bar, one way or the other, cocked one way or the other, you're gonna be out of tune, right? So you got to try and keep that bar straight, and straight to the fret, and try and keep it on the fret. As long as your guitar is tuned open the way it should be. That's another thing too, is if your guitar your guitar can be right in tune with itself open, but let's say you're playing with a guitar, not Fred's tuning is amazing, but if you're playing with a guitar player or other musicians that their tuning is subject questionable, you may have to move the bar flat or sharp of the fret. So, what you may do is you may have to avoid open notes, because maybe your open chord is going to be out of tune from them. Let's say they're sharp, you're going to have to be you're going to have to play a little bit sharp of the fret to match them. If that's the case, so be it. You do it. It's us that needs to compensate to the band. Unfortunately, they're not gonna follow us. We need to try and follow the other musicians in the band as far as tuning is concerned. So the first thing I do is, if I'm playing with a piano, is I want to make sure I'm in tune with the piano, because guitars, they're going to tune throughout the course of the night. They're going to adjust their tuning much like a bass player, or they should. But a piano, most of these electronic pianos this day and age, they're set. Their tuning is set, so they're not. We need to tune to them. So I'll figure out if I'm going to be in tune with the piano. I'll go over and get a note from the piano. Okay, there's A440. Okay, I can get my A note in tune, and then I can kind of tune the rest of the guitar off of that reference pitch, and then get it in tune. And then that'll hopefully allow me to play on the fret. So getting back to your question, Don, what I do is I'm tuning the root notes. I basically tune the E's to 441 to start. So I'm tuning, because this thing has what they call cabinet drop. Every steel has a little bit of flex in it. So if you press these first two pedals, A and B, probably can't hear it. Maybe you can if you have really good ears. You might be able to hear a little bit of flexing going on with those strings 4 and 8. They're actually not being pulled technically by the pedals, but you can hear them. They're dropping a little bit in pitch. That's just the nature of the instrument. So what you need to do is to center your pitch, is what I do, and a lot of players do, is we take these root notes and we bring them a little bit higher in pitch. So instead of just tuning them to 440, right, open, when you press your pedals, they're going to drop down to, let's say, 439 or maybe more. If your steel has a lot of cabinet drop, they're going to maybe even go below that, which is going to bring your whole tuning flat, and especially in the open position. So that's not necessarily a good thing. It's better to be a little bit sharp, I find, than to be a little bit flat. So I tune mine around 441, you know, in that ballpark, maybe even sometimes 441.5. I know I've seen things on Paul Franklin where he tunes, I think, to 442, I believe. And it all depends who you're playing with, too, right? I mean, it depends with the other musicians. And so as far as I tune my reference a little bit higher than 440. Now what I do, I start tuning in group combinations by ear. Now, you can probably hear this, probably most of you can hear this. I'm just going to detune it to show you what I do. So this is, now I've got 4 and 8 in tune. And you can even, I'll tune the 4th string and then just tune the 8th string by ear because it's an octave. So let's say it's flat, so you just play those 2 notes together and let them ring. And you can hear beats and waves between the notes as you bring the closer in tune. So as those beats and waves disappear, that means you're getting closer in tune. Now what you can do, if you can't hear that, is you can do what's called a harmonic. You can play a harmonic. You can play, let's say, the 4th string at the 12th fret, and then play your 8th string way up at the 24th fret, and let those sustain. And you can kind of hear those beats and waves disappearing. So as they disappear, that means you're getting closer in tune. Now, another good habit I would recommend is when you're tuning like that, is if there's a pedal or knee lever that's attached to a string that you're tuning, is just hit that pedal or knee lever, just so that it kind of settles into pitch. I always do that when I tune the 4th string to the tuner. I'll hit the C pedal, release it, and then get it in tune with my tuner, because it's going to allow that string to settle into pitch. If you just start tuning the tuning knob, the tuner, and just tune it right up, sometimes when you start playing, when you hit that pedal or knee lever, it's not going to be true to where you want that actually to be. So that's just a good habit to get into. And again, when you're tuning relative other strings from other strings, off of other strings, it's just a good habit to, as you go through the tuning, just hit that knee lever or pedal to get it to settle in. And hopefully you get it pretty close. And now, that's 4 and 8. Now, if I was going to tune the 5th string, which is a true 5th of the chord of E, again, you can hear these beats and waves as they get closer. So you can start to hear the beats now. Now you can also do harmonics for that too. Like you have to find them where they are. Like for this, it would be the 4th string at the 7th fret, and then the 5th string at the 5th fret. Now those sound pretty close, but let me show you what happens now. Now they're in tune open, but watch what happens when I put my bar down. That's not bad. I thought it was going to be worse. Sometimes what happens is because of the pressure of the bar in relationship with other strings, it's going to make certain strings sound sharp or flat. So if that string was sharp, what I would do is I would bring it down open a little bit. So it would be slightly flat in the open position, but when I get my bar, let's say at the 8th fret, the 10th fret, it's going to be more in tune, because let's face it, we're playing with the bar more than we are not, right? And we're playing, let's say, around the middle of the guitar. We get up into the high register and we play low, but But let's say, you want to kind of split the difference. So it's a good idea to tune, let's say, around the 8th or 10th fret. And then everything else is kind of close. So I'll check it around the 8th fret. That sounds pretty good there. And then I would do the same thing. Like I would tune my 10th string off the 5th, or tune it, now that the 8th string's in tune the 10th string off the 8th. Right, if it was... And you can hear the beats. And that sounds pretty close. I was going to get into this too. There are basically 3 different methods that you can tune. So what I'm doing is what's called just intonation. So it's taking a reference note and then tuning the other strings in group combination off of that reference note. There's a method which most musicians use, like guitar players and bass players, which is equal temperament. That's what a tuner does. So if you were to tune every one of these strings open to their respective note, that's equal temperament. And what that does is it takes the 12 notes in a chromatic scale and it splits them all evenly, is what it does. So, not to get into a lot of theory about this, but with guitar, with the frets, because of the fretboard, they need the option to be able to play in many different keys, or all different keys, right? So in order for everything to sound in tune, that's why equal temperament came into being. So that, because you can tune one chord sounding really sweet on a guitar, but then you change it, like an E, let's say an E chord, then you go to a C chord, and it's like, oh, now something sounds sour, something's out. So equal temperament solved that. It splits all the tones in equal segments so that every chord can sort of sound in tune. Or as much as it's in tune, it's a little bit out of tune. Same thing. This instrument's a little different. It's a little unique that way, in that we don't have to do that if we don't want to. We can actually tune this thing so that it sounds pure to the ear, to get certain intervals really in tune and sounding really sweet. And that's what most players do on this instrument. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. Most of the great players do that. But there still are players out there that will tune this thing equal temperament, and they sound great too. They sound in tune. Buddy Emmons went through that in his career. He started tuning equal temperament in the 80s, I think. And then he refined it a little bit later in his career, but still played and sounded incredibly in tune. Yes?
How do you find the Peterson strobe tuners, like with their program tunings? How do you find them in terms of, if you tune to that, do you still find that for yourself you have to go back and refine it?
I use the Peterson, but I've programmed my own settings into it.
Okay.
So I went through the process of taking this steel and my other steel, and I fine-tune them by my ear so that they sound good to me, and then I write the settings down, and then I program those settings into my tuner. So that's what I've done. From what I hear, he's asking about the Peterson tuners, which are...
It's got a pre-programmed E9th, with adjustments on that.
Yeah, and they're great. I mean, and there are a lot of presets in those tuners too. I've tried them and I've used them, and they sound good. Don't get me wrong. They will definitely get you very close and in the ballpark. The only thing with those is they're not set up for each guitar, because and the players that have played this instrument a long time, they know that you basically have to fine-tune each instrument to itself. There's always some little idiosyncrasy on each instrument, so that's what I'm saying. One size doesn't really fit all. but it will get you very close. I recommend, I use a strobe, the Peterson strobe tuner. They're very accurate, and yeah, I have no issues with them. The only thing I would say is over time, the more you play this thing, as your ears get more developed and trained, you may want to start tuning by ear and write down your own settings. Tune your guitar to itself, you know, and then mark down the settings that work for you. Because like I say, everybody's different, right? Somebody made those settings, right? Somebody developed them and imported them into the tuner. I heard years ago the old Jeff Newman setting, the original one. I don't know if it's true, that I heard that he went to Lloyd Green and said, Lloyd, tune your guitar. And Lloyd Green has never owned a tuner. Lloyd Green still doesn't own a tuner to this day. He tunes everything by ear. He goes into a studio and gets an E note from a piano or a guitar player and then tunes by ear. And he's, you know, been on more sessions than anybody in the world. But yeah, so he asked Lloyd to tune a steel, and then he wrote down the settings off that guitar, and those became the standard for the Jeff Newman settings. Now, I don't know if that's true, but that's what I heard. So,
Jeff told me.
Yeah, there you go. Jeff has mentioned it before, so. But yeah, so, and then I just go in group combinations. I tune my thirds of the chord a little bit sharp.
That was my next one.
Some people like to really hear everything pure, the triads pure. It's gone out on me a little bit.
So if you're playing E's to F triad with the A pedal,
Yeah.
that group combination, does tuning that sharp, does that bring that sixth string up a little bit more in tune?
It does. And I was going to mention that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because there is an age-old problem. Like I mentioned, cabinet drop. It just doesn't happen on strings 4 and 8. It happens on every string. So what happens is there's certain flexes that happen. So when you're using the A pedal, for instance, raising that 5th string a whole tone, and then you bring in that knee lever that raises 4 and 8 a half a tone, a lot of times what happens is that 6th string will go flat. You can probably hear it. It's got a flex to it as well. Yeah, so what I was going to mention is I tune not just strings 3 and 6. If you start tuning thirds, the third of the chord, slightly sharp, you have to do it with all of them. You have to be consistent or else it doesn't work. So what I mean by the third of the chord in the open position would be strings 3 and 6, right? So it's pretty close there. I got to bring it up a bit. Yeah, there. So if you hear that now, I'm playing at the 5th fret. I'm just playing off the strings 3 and 4. You can hear some beats between those notes. A lot of people don't tune like that. They tune it pure. So they would tune it so that the 3rd and 4th string, I can bring it up a bit. Right about there. So that's a pure A chord on the high register. Now what I do is I tune it a little bit sharp. So now you can hear a little bit of beats happening between those notes. I'm not saying everybody can do this. It takes a little getting used to. My ears tuned the other way for 20 years. I was a struggle for a while to start tuning this way because my ears didn't want to accept those beats. Every time I heard them, I was like, oh, it's out of tune. But as the years went on and I started to getting into more recording, And even in a live situation, playing with guitar players and piano players, I find by tuning the thirds slightly sharp, is it tends to blend better with the other instruments. Now again, I'm not trying to convince anybody to change their method of tuning, but to get back to your question too about cabinet drop and certain strings sounding in tune with others, by tuning these thirds slightly sharp, certain positions now are blend. And another thing that happens too is when you play that position that I just mentioned, the A pedal and the E to F lever, a lot of times you have to bring that bar sharp of the fret. You can't, if you were to play that right on the fret, chances are you're going to be flat of the rest of the band, the other instruments. It just doesn't blend. So you got to bring it up a little bit sharp of the fret to get it to blend with the other instruments.
Do you, when you're playing with piano, do you find that you raise the thirds even more for the piano, or just your normal method works fine?
I find
Depends on the piano.
I find what I'm doing now works most of the time. I tried Equal Temperament on one gig, and I couldn't stand it. I cringed all night because it just sounded so out of tune to me. But nobody in the band complained. But I was like, every break, I was like, I want to tune this back. But I stuck with it for one show, and then I said, no, this isn't for me. I can't tune everything straight up Equal Temperament, but maybe I can go in between. So I started doing that. So what I do is, again, the thirds of the chords. So wherever, I don't even know where it lies anymore. Let's say that third string goes, maybe, would it be around 438, let's say, on a tuner?
Yeah, it's around
438 and a half.
Yeah, if it's pure.
If it's
the Newman one.
the Newman, if
It's pure.
it's pure, yeah. So I go in between. So if my fourth string's at 441, and normally the third string Equal Temperament would be 441. Newman's chart, let's say, is 438, 438.5. I go in between. I say, okay, I'm going to tune my third string at 439.5. Right? So and then it's like, okay, you know what? I can live with that. There's some beats and waves between the notes. I'm not Equal Temperament. It's not pure by ear, but when I play a triad, it still sounds fine. You know what I mean?
But when you're with do you find you have to do it more? If you're with some pianos,
Oh, you mean
Yeah, like you have to raise your thirds even more.
No.
Or what you're doing usually works for you.
What I'm doing usually, what I'm doing usually works. I've never had to raise the thirds higher than basically splitting the difference of where it would be. The way I look at it, I mean, you look at guys like, the pros like Franklin, Mike Johnson, all those guys tune just intonation. They tune by ear and sweet, and they're playing with pianos, and so it really comes down to this and where this is placed. But for me, just me personally, I was struggling at times. Like I say, in a live situation, I'd be like, man, I tuned, but it's not sounding good to me, And I check my tuning, and I put my bar where I thought it would be, to be in tune. And so I've been doing this, like I say, for probably over 15 years now. And I just find it's more tolerant, right? You get in a situation where if your thirds do go a little bit flat, it's like, now I'm sour, now I'm out of tune. With this method, if my thirds go a little flat, now I'm where everybody else is, or where I used to tune. If they go a little sharp, I'm still in the Equal Temperament range. And the other thing, what I like about this method, is, like you say, is not only for the cabinet drop thing, but also note combinations, right? Because the old thing where if you tune totally by ear with the major string groupings, right? Now, how do you tune the 1st and 7th string? You either have to tune them in the open position so they sound good there, or the closed down position. You can't, I mean, you can split the difference, but then to me, then it's almost unusable too.
Can't have it both ways.
You can't, yeah, these guys that have been longtime players, they know, you can't have it both ways. You can't, if you tune it so it sounds good like that, you can't tune it, you won't have it in tune so it sounds like that. So by the method that I'm using now, again, this is not perfect, but I'm just saying, what you can do now is I can play these more complex voicings, different string groups. See, I can go no pedals. I'm using the 7th string there with strings 5 and 8. And I can also do this. Pedals down, I can use the 7th string off of the 5th and 6th strings with the pedals down and the 9th string. So I can get a major 7th voicing and I can release that A pedal. You know? And it's acceptable, I guess, is the best way to say it.
Well, it's a great compromise.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's a compromise. Because you're never going to, I don't care, you know, if you've got this thing loaded with compensators and there's still certain combinations you have to avoid to really play in tune, I guess is the way to say it.
Dale, when you put on a new set of strings, is there anything in that, like, you know, if you have 6 inches extra of string, if you only put on 2, or if you wind the whole string on there, does that make it any difference of how the string's going to stretch or be in tune or not?
As far as tuning you mean? As far as the tuning of it?
Yeah.
Not that I find, no. It doesn't, it won't change anything for tuning. Now, the only thing I do different on the 3rd string, like the others, what I try and do is I try and make the string go off of the roller straight.
Yeah.
So if you were to look up here, it's all the strings are in as straight a line as I can get.
Right.
Because that's going to help your pull, right? Like when you're pulling a string a whole tone, it's going to make it easier to pull, probably less likely to break, right, when it's pulling in a straight line. But the 3rd string, I put a little extra winding on it. Mullen suggests that, and I think it helps with breakage, they say, too. It breaks less when you add a couple extra windings. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it changes anything for pitch, though, for tuning, to be honest. No, not that I've noticed. Yeah.
Do you have, sorry?
You say the wound strings, or if you have too many winds, when you're pulling the string, it compresses the others and it changes your tuning.
Well, that could be. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me that could happen. You don't need, and that's a good point. On the wound strings, you don't need many windings because the fact that they are wound, once you do 2 laps on the tuning peg, they kind of grip each other, the windings, so it's not going to slip.
That was a Jeff Newman suggestion way back in 1975.
I was
2.
9.
So
you don't have to stretch your strings. If you put new strings on, you stretch them like on a guitar?
I don't do that. I know players that do that. They'll pull up on them to stretch. I don't do that because I put these on Tuesday, I think it was, these strings. I just play the guitar. After I put new strings on, I'll play the steel, play it, press the pedals, tune it, because it's going to go flat, right, over time with new strings. So I just tune them up, and then it'll get to a point where it stays, right? It stay consistent. But I mean, you're always tweaking, like as you can tell today I am. Everything moves.
Do you have any preference in like your 3rd string? Do you have 11 gauge or do you 11.5, 12?
This is just the standard on the JHS. I think it might be 11.5. I think, on the boomers. Yeah, because they've got the PG, which is the pedal steel version. So it might be an 11.5 on the third. Yeah, but these are just standard gauges. Yeah, I didn't like, they recently switched the first string to a 12, from a 13 to a 12. I wish they would have stayed to a 13. I like the 13's a little thicker, and you can still get it up to pitch. So I wish they would have stayed with that, but I just got used to the gauge. And
That's interesting.
where are we sitting for time, guys?
5:30.
It's supper time.
It's quarter after 3.
Oh, is it? Okay. Let's, Fred, would you like to come up and assist on a song,
Awesome.
please? Does anybody have any questions at this point that they want to?
The split tuners, you call them, I call them final lower tuners.
Oh, the split tuner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any difference, like when I set up my guitars, I do final lowers on split tuners, okay?
Oh, okay. Yes.
Does that have the same effect as what you're doing there to split the tuners?
Well, yes, it does. I'm actually, that's where my final lower for the fourth string is happening, is on the split tuner. Yeah. So when I tune that fourth string lower, I'm actually tuning it at the split, like at the end plate. Yeah. And then to tune the in between note, I actually tune with the nylon tuner. Yeah. So that would be the nylon tuner. And then the full lower is tuned at the end plate. Yeah.
I find that more stable than just tuning on the nylon knot.
Yes, that's a great point to make. Yeah, is when you do tune your lowers. Yeah, I mean, because every guitar, right, every Alpol, I guess, would have that capability, right, with split tuning. Well, yeah, most of them nowadays would. So you can. You can actually tune your lowers at the nylon, with the split tuners instead of the nylon tuners, and you're going to get a more solid stop.
Yeah, of course.
Push-pull feel.
That's right, the push-pull feel. Maybe not the tone, but the feel.
Push and pull.
Push and pull. Yeah, that's a good point, Bent. Thank you for making that. I don't do that on all my lowers, but that's a good point, that capability is there. I think it's close. Want to do always late?
Sure.
Okay. Key A, I take it?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, we're going to feature Fred Lewis on vocals and guitar, and he's going to help me out with this song, and then we'll do a little bit of teaching.
I think it's featuring you. It's just I'm going to put words in between it.
Sure.
Always late with your kisses. Why don't you come to my arms, sweet darling, stay? Always late with your kisses. Why, oh, why do you want to do me this way? How long do you think that I can wait? wait when you know you're always late, always late with your kisses. Why don't you come to my arms, sweet darling, and stay? Always late with your kisses. Why, oh, why do you wanna do me this way? Why, oh, why do you wanna do me this way?
Fred Lewis. Thank you, Fred.
So I've got a question for you then. Because you're playing an E9th neck, how are you getting all of the C6 sound consistently, or C6 sound throughout the song?
He cheats.
I want him to explain the cheating.
That's a great question. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about that. That particular song lends itself well to the C6th type sound. Now, let me explain that. I think I already mentioned that I have, as many people do, have a double neck pedal steel that the back neck is tuned open to the C6th tuning, which is reminiscent of, it started even in some Hawaiian music years ago, but then it evolved into Western swing, and now there are people that play jazz, full-blown out jazz on it, and all kinds of crazy music. But that tuning really lends itself well to Western swing and that style. But we can do a little bit of that on here. You can't get all of the chord extensions and everything, and because it is a lower tuning. It's not like this is much higher pitched, whereas the C6 is a much lower based tuning. But we can get some of those sounds on the E9th out of a standard E9th tuning. Now, there's one thing you kind of need to have or it helps, is to have that lower, that ninth string lower that I mentioned earlier, because that's pretty crucial for getting some of the sounds I was just playing there. Now, to just open it up and say, well, where does this start from? The 6th. Well, the easiest way to think about it, just to show them, Fred, can you just play an A minor chord? So that's an A minor. So I'm playing an A minor at the 8th fret with my A pedal, and I'm just playing strings 4, 5, and 6. Now, if you now play a C chord, please. Now he's playing a C chord. That's basically a 6th. That's a 6th tone in the scale. So what happens is it's the root that changes. So either the guitar player, or if it's a bass player playing, I'm not going to play, as far as the basis of the chord, I'm not going to play anything much different. I'm playing the same notes. There's A minor, or here's C. That's the C note over a C6th. So A minor and C6th, basically the same chord until you get into upper extensions and whatnot. So the way to approach this is, okay, well, how do I look at this as a 6th tuning? The easiest way, a lot of people I know, and I'm going to get into it about lowering the E's, that is the most thought of method, is to lower your E's and say, okay, well, I've got a B6th, which is true. Like if you were to play a B chord, a B major, I can hit every note except 2 and 9, and I've got a B6th. Now I'm with my E's lowered. Sorry, I'm lowering strings 4 and 8. So that's a typical move that a pedal steel player will do to get that C6th or that 6th type sound. So if we bring it up 1 fret, we're now in C. That was in B, so now we're in C. Sorry. So that's like a C6th chord right there at the 1st fret with that. But let's look at it this way. If we press both of our pedals, we get the A major, but on the major grips, right? Strings 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10. That's an A major. Now all we have to do is add the 9th string, the 7th string. That becomes the 6th of the chord, right? With the pedals down. So there's a wealth of stuff you can do with the pedals down. Like, for instance, we just played that in the key of A. So you can be up at your 12th fret with the pedals down and play all or any of these string groupings. So now you have to change string. A lot of times you'll change grips. Like, you're not just playing the major grips. You're not just playing 3, 4, and 5, 4, 5, and 6, 5, 6, and 8, 6, 8, and 10. Now you're going to have to, you're going to have to play, like, let's say 4, 5, and 7. Or play 5, 6, and 7. Or play 6, 7, and 8. Or you can play a lower extension like 7, 8, and 10. So now you're getting all these C6th type sounds with the pedals down and just utilizing different string groupings. And how this works nice is you can, that's at the 12th fret in the key of A. Now, another cool thing is a lot of C6 Western swing type players, they'll actually do what they call raking with the thumb. That type of sound. And we can do that now because now we've got from the, actually let me extend this by lowering that 9th string. Now we can get the full chord. So now I lowered that 9th string a half a tone. Now it doesn't matter. I can play from the 10th string right up to the 3rd string, and I can't hit a bad note. It's all based out of a 6th tuning. And actually, because I lower that 2nd string a whole tone too, and I can hit you can hit all 10 strings, to be honest, with my setup. And you're not going to hit a bad note. But you can do those type of sounds, right? Those rakes. And then if you go down 2 frets and release the pedals, so from the 12th to the 10th fret, lower your E's a half a tone. Now this is the combination that most, a lot of steel players use, and there's a wealth of stuff in there too. Now, same thing. Now you can play the major grips. There's nothing wrong with that. That is the 6th chord in that sense. But you can also play some different extensions too. You can include the 7th string. For instance, you can play strings 5, 6, 7, and 8 to get that full chord. So it's more like a C6th. Same with the upper, you can play 4, 5, 6, and 7. So the way I'm doing that, if you don't want to rake it with your thumb, you can play what a lot of players do on C6 is you play the top 2 strings with your finger picks, right? So if I'm playing 4 and 5 with my picks, what I'm doing is I'm just raking 2 strings with my thumb. So I start with my thumb on the 7th string, and then I rake it forward to grab the 6th string, and then pull back to get the high notes with my picks. That's a common move on the C6. Well, we can do that. We can do that on the E9th too, right? To emulate that sound. Now, another cool thing you can do with this knee lever is you can. This is a typical C6th move. Something like that, you can be at the 10th fret, just play strings, have your knee lever lowering that 8th string, and then play strings, that was strings 5, 6, and 8, then go 5, 6, and 9, and then lower that 9th string, a half a tone, release the lower, 5, 6, 9, and then go back to the other grip. So there's, you can get some of those C6th type sounds. You just got to kind of look for them. I just recently have been diving into this because of getting the single neck the last few years. I don't necessarily want to carry a double neck to shows all the time with me. So, and if you can get by on certain shows with just a single neck, you know, it's a lot of it is there. And then get it, to take that even further. So to go even further, so now down to the lower A chord, what I had mentioned before, when I talked about it in C, if you go down to your 5th fret and just press your A pedal, right, you would think, well, that's an F sharp minor, but it's also an A6th, right? So you can play any of the major grips, but you can also include the 7th string, because what it is the it's the 9th of the chord. So you can get a 6th with the added 9, which totally works, right? It fits in that context of if you're playing Western swing type music. Does anybody have any questions on that style? Let's do, we might as well do, sorry, yes.
I had a question, not specifically on that style. I'm somebody that was just gifted a Showboat Maverick, so I have one knee lever. Do you have any resources or advice on getting started on that?
Yeah.
I can tell already, like I've played guitar for years, and I can figure out most of the voicings available to me, but like it's limited, and so I want to, I don't know, get as far on that before I have to upgrade.
Sure. Now, does it have 3 pedals at this point?
Pedals, yeah.
3 pedals, okay. So, and it's probably set up the standard, what I mentioned, the standard tuning. Okay. And do you know what the knee lever is doing? Is it?
It's dropping the lowest E down a half step, and then is it D sharp on the
on the second?
That's also down a half step.
Half step. Okay. I think that's the standard setup that came on the Showboat Mavericks, which is good. If you just have the one knee, that's probably the best change you can put on that guitar. So which it allows you to do. Right, it allows you to get that type of voicing, and also when you use the pedals, you can bring it in to get the 7th sound. Yeah, and also with the 2nd string lowering a half a tone, you can get the dominant 7th chord as well, so you can get all that type of sound. So no, that's great. I wouldn't change anything with the pedals or knee levers, because it's giving you, with the one knee lever, it's giving you the best you can get for now. So that's great.
So then that Maverick wouldn't be lowering the 4th string, which would give you a better, to learn more on with that 2nd string, really.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Since you're not lowering the 4th string like you would the 8th string, which is on most normal, most of the guitars this day and age. Obviously, you can get that same note by hitting the 2nd string, right? Maybe you've figured that out already.
Yeah, working around.
And there's nothing wrong with that. One of the best players in the world, Lloyd Green, still does not lower his top E. He just lowers that 8th string, same as you do. So again, going back to setup, it's not real crucial to have an elaborate setup. It's more about learning what you can do on your own setup and learning music, right? Understanding music and how to apply it to your particular instrument. So that's great.
I have one follow-up question.
Of course.
Do you know of any albums that are recorded with a Maverick, or is it more so the 4 knee lever setup with the 3 pedals?
I can't think of anything offhand. I'm sure there are some out there. I'd have to research. Anybody in the audience think of a? I can't. You know what? There was a fellow that played steel, and I don't know if he still does. He played briefly for Dwight Yoakam, and he was playing a Showbud Maverick. Now, I don't know if he's just had one knee lever. Sometimes they update them. They'll take these older guitars and add knees and add pedals to them. So I don't know if he's updated the guitar or not. But it wouldn't surprise me that there's players out there that have recorded with them. And
Would that setup he's talking about get you like in the basic Buck and Merle and all that stuff, like the early Bakersfield stuff?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because I mean, when that stuff came out, a lot of it was recorded on an 8-string,
Like the Fender 400?
the Fender 400s, and that. So they didn't even have the top 2 strings, right? They were just dealing with from the 3rd string and down. So yeah, I mean, all that early Merle stuff and Buck Owens, together again was basically played on 2 strings, right? 3 and 5. Just moving your bar throughout the frets and using different pedal and knee lever combinations. Does anybody have any other questions at this point, or? Well, maybe we'll just. I'll just explore a little bit more of the 6th sounds. We'll go just a little deeper because you can. I mean, I'm just touching on this because if you really want to go into this world of learning a 6th or C6th type sounds on E9th, look for players like Randy Beavers, Travis Toy. There's others, I can't think of them offhand, but these guys, they've really, they can play outright jazz on this one tuning without even touching a C6th. So if you really want to dive into that, look into those players.
Something I should mention is for C6 on E9th, Doug Jernigan, he actually produced a book with about 8 tunes. I did a copy of it actually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I bought it. It was only $50, but it's really good. And he takes all kinds of tunes. About 8 or 10 tunes, and it's all tabbed out to get C6 on E9. So if anyone's interested, so Doug Jernigan.
Doug Jernigan, yeah. It's an instruction. Is it a booklet with a CD or something?
It's a booklet and a CD.
Okay.
That's basically
very well done.
That's what I listened to all the way down here for 2 hours. Honestly.
So you don't want to hear this stuff.
I do. Honestly, I do.
Yeah. Doug, another great player, Doug Jernigan. Yeah, has explored that world huge. Like I say, there's other guys. You just need to research, but there's a lot of the younger players because they're not. Some of them aren't going back and learning the C6th tuning, right? They have no interest, but they want to play that music, so they're taking this tuning that they're used to, and they're finding ways of doing it, right? So I'll just do a real quick version of All of Me,
Okay.
in the key of G.
Okay. You should mention before you do that that you teach lessons and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, okay. Just to let it. I mean, I hate doing this, a shameless plug, but I've been doing video instruction. Well, I've been teaching for probably 25 years, doing one-on-one lessons and also but I do online lessons, so I do video instruction. So I have, and I'll let anybody that wants to look at it after, I have a catalog of video lessons that I've done for the last 10 or so years. So just to let you know, and some of them are instrumentals, but actually most of them are requests from other students where they want to learn just specific things like, like the intro or solo that Lloyd Green did on Farewell Party, right? So I go through and I dissect And I teach you exactly, well, not exactly, but as close as I can get to the way Lloyd played those parts without lowering his fourth string. And so it's just a bunch of different songs and intros, solos, fills to popular songs. I dissected a good chunk of when Paul Franklin and Vince Gill did the Bakersfield CD. I dissected a good chunk of the Bakersfield recordings, so those are all. And I teach exactly the way I would hear, like explaining if you don't play. So I tell you exactly what fret to put your bar, which strings I'm playing, which pedal and knee lever combinations I'm using. So you can be an absolute beginner on this instrument and follow the video instruction and not have an issue with it. You'll be able to learn that way. So anyway, thank you, Fred. I just wanted to let you know that.
So Dale, do you have digital downloads for those?
Well, what I do is I've uploaded the videos it's on a private YouTube channel, is what it is. So and what I do is I get your email address, and then
Okay, I can access it then.
you can access it. Yeah. So as soon as I send you the video, the YouTube video file, you're able to access it, and
Great.
yeah. So if anybody's interested, maybe just see me after, or I'll put it out. I've got the list here of the songs that I've done, so you can just peruse that whenever you want. And do we want to mess around with all of me? I guess.
Sure.
Key of. We'll start it on the what is it? The C. We'll start it like Willie does.
I'm just going to follow wherever you go, and I'll apologize multiple times for it.
And I may do the same. Okay. I don't want it too fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Tag. Sorry about all the mistakes.
We only heard one.
Yeah, there were more.
How long did it take you to learn that whole song?
40 years.
Yeah, 40 years. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the basis of it, I play it on C6th, right? I normally do it on C6th. So that's why I was saying the last 5 years or so, I've been kind of transposing certain tunes that I would normally play on C6th over to the E9th. Now, of course, you can't get all of those voicings, but you can get some of the extensions and,
Right.
yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, thank you. Well, the ad-lib part is just, it changes, right, with the weather, so. But the structure of the song, yeah, I mean, the structure of the tune, like anything, you have to know the chord changes right to start. Once you know the chord changes and where the song's going structurally with the chord, then you can embellish, I guess is probably the best way to say it, right? So you get the basic of the chord, and because I was going to run through a bit of this anyways, just to show you my thought on it. So I mean, we're in the key of G on this version. So it starts on a 4 chord, a C, but it's actually a C major 7th, is what it is. So the easiest way to do that on E9th is up at the 10th fret with A and B pedals down, and you're going to play strings 5, 6, and 9. Right, that's your, right, if you're going to play a C, there's the C major 7th. So the easiest way to because I want to do this, I want to do the melody. Right? So you can just release the A pedal, play the 6th string as a melody note, and then to do this chord, which actually, we were just discussing that, I believe it's an F9, F9. So you can play it up there, F9 at the 13th fret, right? On strings 6, 7, and 9. But since we're down here at the 10th fret, the easiest way to do it is just bring in that D lever that raises your 8th string a half a tone. And I got both pedals down. And then you can get that same melody off the A pedal, right? So you just keep your B pedal down and your knee lever that raises 8. And then I like a combination. Some guys like all chords, and it's nice at times, but I like mixing it up. I like playing chords and then playing single notes with it, with the melody. It just it gives it a little breath at times. So when I'm doing a melody like that, I'll sometimes play chords and then play a single note melody and then play a single note melody. Now down to a chord. Now we're down into another major 7th. So now we're into G major 7th. And the way I'm doing that is at the 5th fret with A and B down, and I'm playing strings 5, 6, and 9. And then it's going to the what is that, 6th chord? Yeah, the E chord. So, and the easiest way to do that, now that we're at the 5th fret, right, keep A and B down, and then lower your 8th string a half a tone, and now you can play strings 5, 6, and 8, or 5, 6, 7, and 8 if you want. Right, that's a nice E9th chord right there. And then it's going to A minor, or A minor 7th. And again, sometimes I'll do just a single note. Now there's a cool voicing right there, over the A minor. Can you play an A minor, Fred, just for reference? Yeah, so I'm just down at the 3rd fret, and I've got A and B down, or actually, you just need A, but I would keep B down too. And then just play strings 4, 5, and 7. Right? And then you can play 4, 5, 6, and 7. Sorry, 4, 5, and 7, and then play 5, 6, and 7. So it's... And then back to 4, 5, and 7. And then, this is kind of a cool thing we can do here. This is about as jazzy as I get so far in the E9th tuning, but what we can do here, as opposed to just playing, we can play that, because we're in a D chord now, or D7th. Yeah, so that's at the 10th fret, A pedal down, strings 5, 6, and 9. Right, that gives you, that's actually a 13th. if you were to break it down, that's actually D13th. Again, I don't want to get into a lot of theory, but it's just creating the melody of that song. And then it's going to go back to G. But what we can do there is we can if we raise our roots, bring in that E to F lever and raise our eighth string a half a tone, we get a very cool dissonant chord. It's a flat 9 is what it is. And you don't want to harp on it too long. You don't want to be like, staying on that chord forever, because it's jazzy, right? But when you resolve, that's the key. We're resolving it back to the G. So it totally works. So when you go, because you're only there a split second. So now we're playing strings 5. I've got the A pedal and that D lever, playing 5, 6, 8, and 9. So and again, you can brush those 2 notes with your thumb, 9 and 8, and then pick the top 2 with your fingers. And that's so that would be a D, a D13 flat 9. And so I mean that's one way that we can kind of explore that C6th world. And then I'll just run through these changes because they're cool too. So that's a little turnaround change over G. So I'm just at the 8th fret with, again, lowering that 8th string, and you can play strings 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then you go up, and now we're playing chord-wise. It would be going to a G sharp diminished. But we can play that up here to get the melody. So the way I'm doing that is I'm just moving up 1 fret from the 8th to the 9th. Bring in that D lever again that raises the 8th, and you'll play strings 5, 6, and 8. And then we're going to A minor, so it's right there. Lose the D lever, bring in your A pedal, and at the 8th fret, just play 5, 6, and 8. And then to go to the D chord, or D7th or 13th, again, right back up at the 10th fret with the A pedal, and strings 5, 6, and 9. And then it can resolve right back to the G. So that's nice. Nice little turnaround move to get you back to the melody of the song. Yeah. Any questions on that, or? I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about the volume pedal. It's a very important part of this instrument. There are players that don't use a volume pedal, and it sounds fine, because what they do is they change their attack with their right hand. But what the volume pedal allows you to do is sustain long notes or chords, right? So I always suggest too, because I do this, is you set your amp fairly loud. Because to me, you're never really going to use the full pedal. Maybe to sustain harmonics or something. Over a long period, you might want to eventually use all the pedal. But for the most part, it's you're going to be using it. To sustain, or chords, whatever, right? So you need that reserve, you need that extra to be able to milk and sustain the notes and the chords as long as possible. So it's a very subtle thing, but on ballads, that's where you can really utilize the volume pedal. Not so much on fast stuff. When you play fast stuff, it's you basically get the pedal set where you want the volume, and you leave it there, unless you want a note to jump out or something. But you can usually do that by picking harder sometimes. But on ballads, you want that. You want that enough of that volume pedal that you can bring the swells in and out to get that crime sound, if that's what you want, right? And also the sustain at the end.
What kind of pots are you using in your pedal, Dale?
I'm using the Goodrich, the Dunlop. It's a Dunlop pot. So the ones, it's very similar to what Tom Bradshaw had out, the Dunlop 470K, I think it was. But Goodrich has their own specific model of that now. We were just talking about that today. I literally put this pot in over 10 years ago. And it's still, it's dead quiet.
Where do you get that?
I ordered right from Goodrich. But the problem is you got to order 5 at a time. And they're not cheap. It's like $250. So if you can find a friend to go in halves with you or something.
Better than buying a PEC
He's
and
got 4 for
replacing it
sale.
every month.
He's got 4 for sale.
Yeah, no, well, I sold one to a guitar player. John Zaslow needed one. So, but yeah, I find they're the best pots because the travel is so smooth and they're quiet, no scratchiness at all. They just good tone. Yeah, I've tried. You mentioned the PEC pots. Some of these pots, they don't last, right? You put them in and 3 months later, they're
Crap.
yeah, they're scratchy, and so.
And the PEC ones aren't rebuildable. The old Allen and Bradleys, you can pull them apart and actually rebuild them.
That's right. Yeah. We've talked about that too. That you can clean them up and get a little.
You pop the cover off, and then with a soft cloth or something, just wipe it. But you got to remember where the wiper is, because if you forget and you put it back together wrong, because there is a stop there, you put it together wrong, then you got to tear it all apart again.
Steve Smith fills his full of rust check.
Okay.
The spray cans you get at Canadian Tire, when he takes it apart, puts it back together, he sprays it full of rust check, puts it back in.
Number 2, Jeff Newman used to tell us on the wiper part to sort of just lift it lightly to try and stretch it so that it's not pressing so hard against the carbon.
Yeah.
And that way it lasts, forever.
Yeah, that's a good point, because when you set it up in the pedal with the string, you don't want to have it like either way, either off or full on. You don't want the wiper slamming against the stop, because you're going to destroy that pot in a short amount of time. So that's key, is the way you set it up too, the way it's adjusted in the pedal, and then it'll last a long time if the pot's good quality. So.
For your tone deal, what do you have your amp settings at?
Amp settings?
Yeah,
Oh.
you get the beautiful tone you get.
Well, on this particular amp, the treble is on 6, the mids are on 6, the bass is on 4, and I just got the reverb on about 3, and the volume's just on 3 as well. Yeah, nothing special, and there's no. I don't have the bright switches on. The bright switches are off. So, yeah.
In the hands. Oh yeah.
Good or bad, it sounds like me.
A volume pedal question, keep going on that.
Yeah.
Do you prefer the feel of the string, or do you care if it's like the optical one, or do you feel a difference?
I do feel a difference. I prefer the string, when it's set up properly.
Yeah.
I'm an old school guy, so I like, there's enough resistance there too that I can take my foot off if it'll stay put. And I love the feel of it. And I like the sound. I mean, I've noticed a difference in tone. I used to use the Hilton electronic pedals, and they're great. Don't get me wrong. They work great and they sound good too. But they do change your tone. They will change your sound. So you'll have to adjust your amp accordingly, either cut highs or whatever.
Yeah, they tend to let more highs through, right?
That's what I found. I found the high end really came through on the Hiltons. And these are more forgiving, I guess, for top end. And it's the sound I like, and it's easy and simple. So.
Do you have it set up so it goes all the way off, or you got to have off?
Yeah, I do that. Yeah. I like it. I know Steve Smith, I think he likes it with just a little bit.
Yeah.
And some players like that, and that I like mine all, like, because if I'm going to do something like, I don't know, can't do it today, but yeah, something like that, I want it to be able to come right off the whole treble, yeah. Because I figure, again, like I mentioned, if you need to turn up your amp a bit, right, you can turn up your amp and get that headroom if needed. But it's whatever you get used to. I know everybody's a little different. And
Yeah, I think Long McQuade carries those guitars too.
that's right.
I left my wallet in the car, but thank God.
That's right. Yeah, a lot of the Long McQuades do have these in stock. The Mullen Discovery, but I'm sure they can order one if somebody was interested.
Do you do any behind the bar pulls?
I've done them. I don't do them regularly. If I do, it's on the first string. Yeah. And I only pull it a half a tone. I don't pull it a whole tone. So. Yeah. I don't trust myself for tuning, so I feel better when I bring in the knee lever halfway. I think Doug Johnson still, I believe he still only raises that first string a half a tone. And then what he'll do, I don't want to break string, but he'll actually pull it the rest of the way to bring it to the full pitch. Yeah. So, I don't do a lot of that. I got into bar slants. I do more bar slants now. Got into those a bit.
So on the bar slant, you're actually harmonizing the low string with the top string?
Yeah, well, it is a harmony of sorts, yeah. But you're just, it's to grab a melody note and without reattacking a string, I guess. Because let's say this particular slant, actually, let's do this one. Doing that slant, what you're doing is you're basically keeping the fifth. It's on strings 5. And you can put in 6. I put in 6 too, and 8, 5, 6, and 8. So you can do that with a knee lever, right? If you back up 2 frets and raise your E's to F, you get that diminished chord, right, into a 2 minor after. But I think the slant just sounds better because it's more organic. It's not as mechanical and
It looks way more dramatic and
More expressive for sure.
yeah, it looks way cooler too.
Do you change the pressure on the wire when you're doing the slants, like you were talking about pressure earlier?
Not really. Only that you want to make sure that you are putting enough pressure.
Because it seems like it would be more prone to rattling when you're slanting.
You're right. I think it could be. It's just maybe I just got used to. But you got to watch. Maybe you are, because you don't have that on top now, right? Because you've let that go, right? That finger's gone. So you're right. I think I am putting more pressure. Like I'm pulling a bit here, and also with this finger to. Yeah. Yeah, on that particular slant, you're basically what it's doing is you're raising the fifth string. The fifth string is already raised with the A pedal. So you're raising it another half tone, but the third string stays the same, right? So it's a nice way to grab that note without reattacking, and that way you can sustain it. You don't have to reattack it.
What's the second move, Dale? What was that second?
Second move?
After your slant. Okay, you still got the pedal on.
Yeah. So you go one more fret, semitone. And then release. Yeah.
All right, nice.
Yeah. That was similar. What was that song? Mark Chestnut?
Too Cold at Home or Old Country?
Old Country, I think it was. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. Old Country. Yeah. Yeah, another cool move, and this has nothing to do with slants, but this is kind of like, going back to the Franklin change, there's Tommy White, another great player, he splits that, the Franklin change, so where it's, where typically you would lower all those strings on one pedal, which Paul does, and I do, you can actually split those. So a lot of people will lower 5 and 10 a whole tone, and then they lower the 6th on a separate lever. I believe Tommy White does that. So you can get some really cool moves because you're splitting the change. Now I can do those, but I have to reattack certain strings. So because I raised the 7th string, I'm raising it a whole tone to get some of those moves. So I can't just do it by doing that. I have to now bring in that lever and reattack strings 4, 5, and 7 to get those moves. And what I was going to mention is something that is really a really nice move. I like it. Is it would basically be starting with that, if you do raise your 7th string a whole tone, so it would be on strings 4, 5, and 7 at the 10th fret, let's say, in the key of D. So if you play those strings, actually just play strings 5 and 7. This is a Franklin move. So after you play those strings, release the lever and bring in your A pedal or A and B. And then you hit your 4th string while that all sustains. And then go back to the same move. So you release the pedal and then bring the knee lever back in. So it's kind of a counter motion. Is what's happening. You're lowering one string, raising the other. So. It wasn't that long ago I figured that out, and I thought, man, that's a really cool move.
I noticed your transition from your E's on your left, from your raised down to your lower. It's very smooth. I recently switched over in the last year, so doing that thing you just did on that Mark Chestnut song, you demonstrated that off your C pedal.
Oh, right.
I was caught your transition there very, very smooth.
Well, it's
Because see, I'm lowering over here, so it would be a little different.
yeah.
And right coming off the raise and on the lower on the same E.
Yes, yes. But and again, that's where it's all give and take, because you can do this, and I can't do it, but you can go from the raise to the lower in without that in between step, right? I guess it would be like more like something like that, and I got to go. So it's a compromise, as we talk about as far as setups. It evolves and.
Yeah, it's cool.
Something else I was going to mention about the Franklin change is, it's not only used just as, that type of thing. You can also play a beautiful 7th chord. So depending on the key you're in, so that's out of A, so you can get a beautiful 7th chord out of that. So that would be, just to show you what I'm doing, is at the 12th fret, strings, pedals down, A and B, play strings 4, 5, and 6. Just slide it down 1 fret to the 11th fret. And so this is kind of a chromatic thing to start. And then what you do is you lower your 4th string a half a tone, keep the pedals down, and then slide all that down another fret to the 10th fret. So that's very chromatic. And then you do a little lift with it while it sustains. Sorry. With the A pedal, release both pedals, keep that knee lever engaged, and then go over and hit your Franklin change, and that gives you a really nice A7th chord, and it moves down chromatically.
What fret were you landing on there for the final move?
The final move?
I'm trying to visualize it.
Right there, you mean?
Yeah.
That's it. I just stay all at the same fret.
Oh, okay.
It stays at fret 10 because you're bringing it down with the Franklin change, right?
I got you.
Yeah. As opposed to, you could. I can't do it smooth, right? To bring it down 2 frets, but
That's in effect where you're heading, even, that's where it is, even when it's pedaled into that position.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's nice with that 5 string lowered and hitting the 4 string that's not being moved. Starting it lowered and then taking it off and on. That's nice.
Yeah. There.
So many things you can do with it.
Exactly. Yeah. I've just gotten into more and doing some of the stuff that you can do just with, and in the lower register too, like going off the 10th string. And you can even, we can do all those low guitar tones. That's just using the Franklin pedal. But you can also do, if you raise that 8th string, you can also do that type of sound too, right? By raising that 8th string on the C pedal. So we. Set them up, Joe. That's actually a whole different. You actually tune down for that. Yeah, you tune the 10th string down. Yeah, so you're actually.
So it wasn't done at the time.
It actually wasn't a pedal. He actually tuned it. He actually tuned it right down so that he could play the.
What's that other song? Wasn't it a paycheck song?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not Jim Fest, was it?
Jim Fest. Yeah.
How far down are the tuner?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So you tune it down. You want to match. It's tuned down to an A with the pedals down. So you match it to the 6th string with A and B down. And I mean, if it doesn't come out, you can match it. It's pretty close most of the time in the open position on most guitars, I find. That's not bad there. So, but you might want to tune it. You may have to tune it open and then tune the pedal down if you really wanted it accurate. How are we doing on time now?
You're after 4.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. I don't want to keep you guys too long. Does anybody have any questions, final questions on anything? It doesn't have to pertain to what we're talking about even.
In the write-up on the Long McQuade site, it mentioned something about you talking about doing fills behind singers and so forth for that. Can you talk about that a bit?
I can. Yeah, that was probably from a former clinic.
Oh, okay.
You want to play right over top of everything.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, don't even think about the singer. Don't listen to them.
Demonstrate your skills.
Well, yeah, actually, if you guys don't mind hanging out just for a minute, we'll just do a tune. Quick tune.
I want to fish for a little more acoustic sound. Because you can.
Oh.
We're sitting right here. We
Do you
can.
want to
okay.
You want to do one of those detuned ones?
Notice I use the word fish.
Fish. Sure. Which one do you feel like singing?
Which one's more fun for you to play?
Doesn't matter.
A little Huey Land.
Huey Land? Oh, we can do that too.
Grass grows over me. That's on the Vincent.
Do you know that? The grass grows over me. Do you know that song?
What key is it?
I think it's E. I think it's E.
I probably wouldn't be in E though.
Yeah.
I'd probably be in G if I knew.
Gee, I wonder if I could transpose it on the fly.
Yeah, it'd be low in E.
Yeah. You want to try? Which one do you want to sing?
Are you gonna try? Do you want to try doing "Grass Grows Over Me" in G? Or do you want to do one of the drop tune ones?
Let's do the drop tune. Yeah.
I'll do some slide off your satin sheets or something.
All right. I can't remember what I'm doing. Thank you. Okay. 3, 4, 1, 2.
What a beautiful mansion he built you. Splendor, Lord, you got from wall to wall. And yet, with all of that, you're still not happy. And every time he's gone, I get your call. long dreams, crystal ball. Here's money, buys you everything but my loving. So I guess I'm good for something after all. Slide off your satin sheets, slip into your long soft bed. You know where to find my door. I know what you're crying for. Slide off your satin sheets, slip into your long soft bed. You know where to find my door. I know what you're crying for.
Nice job, Fred. Fred Lewis.
Good stuff, buddy.
Thanks, mister. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
Take care, Andy.
You should share your email address.
Okay.
You got it.
Yep. It's on this sheet here, but I have the lessons here, the list of lessons. My email address is on there, so if you want to jot it down, put it in your phone or whatever. If you do want any lessons, just let me know. And I want to thank Long McQuade and Woodstock again for having me back for a third time, and our fearless leader, Bill Lewis, for the invite, and also for Fred Lewis, he's been with me for all three. Good friend, an incredible musician and singer in his own right. So thank you. And if you don't have any more questions, I guess we'll call it a wrap.
Well, I can't help but have to mention your technique on these triplets that you've been doing is just blowing me away.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Very cool.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for everyone for coming out. It's a joy to see people and share the love of this instrument.
Dale, is it okay to take pictures of your list of stuff that's available?
Oh, of course. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale.